Hey there, fellow book readers. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about the space between young adult fiction and adult fiction, or really the lack of that space in general. A ton of people have read Harry Potter, and it changed the face of young adult fiction as we knew it then, and even as we know it still today. And this is really a good thing. What's not so cool is the huge leap from that style of fantasy book to traditional adult fantasy novels. You go from these easy to read books like Harry Potter or Percy Jackson that have just enough information to get you through the story and just little tidbits about the wider world that they're in, to books that spend a page or even multiple pages on small details with not a whole lot of room in the middle there. Fiction aimed at young adults does a really good job at getting readers hooked quickly and keeping them hooked for several books. Readers new to fantasy need this. That's why things like Harry Potter have done so well. But a few years later, when you want to read some of the more famous adult fantasy novels, you get hit with how slow to start they are and how many pages are spent on one pointless detail that you'll never see again, and we don't really need that, at least not on their first time out. It's a quick way to scare off new readers that are used to a story that is constantly moving forward, and sadly there isn't much between that and how adult fantasy novels work. Most of what there is comes from authors who write a series where the character has literally grown up with their readers. Think about Percy Jackson, where the first book, he's like 11 years old, and when you read it, you feel like you're being read, you're reading a book for an 11-year-old. But then when you get to the first book in the second series about this same character, you feel like you're being read to as an 18, 19-year-old person and not that little kid anymore. But it doesn't really change the pace of the story, just the way it talks to you. The Night Angel is a series I love to talk about, but it's a struggle to get my wife to read it, at least the first time, because the idea of the story is really simple and really good, but it takes so long to get into what's actually going on that she got really bored the first time she tried to read it. And that stops a lot of people from picking up new fantasy books or even trying new fantasy authors. There are a few authors who do it differently, but they're tough to find, and if you can find them, half the time you have no idea where to start. They're usually long-running series that you have to look up again and again just to find out which book to start with. And even then, you have to worry about, is there a prequel? Is there a spin-off? Or different timelines, that's just a mess in and of itself. Young adult fantasy doesn't typically have this problem. Usually their books are really clearly marked, so new readers can find out where to start and jump right in. So the month of October is literally next week at the time of recording this video. Some of you may not know this, but I have never read the dumpster fire that is Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. But if this video can get 5 likes and my channel can get 10 subscribers by October 15th, I will put myself through the torture and make a video about it for the end of our first themed month. October is going to be Harry Potter month. That means at least one Harry Potter video a week, all month long, and there was going to be at least 2 cooking videos for Harry Potter themed food. I hope you guys enjoy. Now back to your regular video. Now, as I was saying, it does exist, but it isn't all that mainstream, and it's pretty difficult to find. I shouldn't have to search pages deep in Google to find books that are good introductions to fantasy, but are also going to hold my own interest, because I'm not going to introduce a book to somebody that I don't want to read myself. I love good fantasy wherever I can get it. But for the normal person, the average normie out there, they don't want to sink into the Lord of the Rings on their first time in adult fiction. It should be really easy to find books with interesting concepts and great worlds that aren't overwhelming to read. It's all about bringing in new readers to fantasy, or any other genre for that matter. If it's easier to get into, it might be easier to get other people to read some of our more favorite books that are more difficult reads. Then maybe there's one more person to recommend a book to you, and that's more reading all the way around. And fantasy is such a great genre to get into. It's escapism in its purest form. And with so much of that being taken away through all the agendas going around right now, and just the lack of ability to go out and do stuff, like go to the movies with the current situation, we really need more of that. All of this ties back to the simple question: where's the middle ground? Can we give it a label or something and market these books in that way? There's so few lists of books between young adult and adult fantasy that looking them up is a challenge, and it shouldn't ever be a challenge to recommend a book to somebody new to any genre. Anyways, I'm going to wrap it up for today. If you guys have any ideas on this or books you would like to recommend to me that fit in this area, or just books in general, leave them in a comment down below. Make sure to include the title and the author so that I have an easier time looking them up. In the meantime, hit those like and subscribe buttons and share this video around. Now, go read a book. If you guys like this video and you're looking for a novel that really does fit between young adult and adult fantasy, go and pick up Jim Butcher's Stormfront and watch my video on it. A link to that will be up in the corner.